Hello everyone, it's time to do another deck profile, this time on my Phantom Blaster Overlord deck post-festival collection, because it's been a while since we did a deck profile on this, and we finally got a promo, one of them, although the other promo has also been released. They've been released for quite a while now. Unfortunately, they were basically shop pack promos, so they were kind of hard to get. But now with everything more easily distributed, especially a reprint of one of them, here's a chance for easy access for everybody, even though I kind of already have the cards. But it's been a while since I did a deck profile on my Phantom Blaster Overlord, and the deck has changed up quite a bit because of it. But anyway, what do I think about the deck? It's still fun, a lot better, especially with the promos. I just really wish that they weren't promos, because the promos is actually the main problem with Vanguard right now. A lot of popular decks rely on the promos to be pretty much good. So I just really wish Bushy would stop doing that already, or at least don't make absurdly good promos, or have good alternatives to the promos at least. But anyway, I still say the deck is just really fun, and Phantom Blaster has been one of my favorite units since the beginning, hence why I still have an Encounter Phantom Blaster deck. He just looks so cool. I like the dark edgy Shadow Paladin Dragon. It just looks cool. That's why I love Phantom Blaster Dragon, especially when it evolves to Phantom Blaster Overlord. Just pure awesomeness to me. But anyway, onto the deck with basically its style. The point of Shadow Paladin overall is basically sacrificing your rearguards for advantages. In this case with Phantom Blaster Overlord, you want to focus on having Phantom Blaster Dragon and Soul, just one copy so he could be at full power. But the other thing you need is Blaster Dark. Without Blaster Dark, this deck will be useless. It is very vital that you have at least the Blaster Dark in mind. Phantom Blaster Dragon you can technically skip out of. It's just this being an evolution of Phantom Blaster Dragon, it's just not going to be at full power. But Blaster Dark you really have to keep in mind, because against certain matchups, aka like bind or return to bottom of the deck, it could actually screw up your plays. So just letting you know. And of course, this being Shadow Paladin, it requires you to retire rearguards. So just keep that one in mind as well, that you're going to need multiple rearguards just to be able to do some of your plays. But other than that, the deck is actually pretty strong. It gets really powerful attacks, you can say, crit pressure because Phantom Blaster Overlord. And another very strong point, this deck does not revolve a lot of counter blasts, at least for your main plays, because Phantom Blaster Overlord, spoiler, is practically free, which is going to be a really strong point about this deck. It's a multi-attack deck that is practically free. So that's going to be one strong point about this deck. Now, keep in mind about another weak point about this deck. You're going to be lacking back row boosters. Thanks to the new cards being promos, those are all grade 2s. And those are pretty good cards to be running as 2 to 4 ofs. So just keep that part in mind, because yeah, you're going to be lacking in kind of a grade 1 lineup. So you might end up using either triggers as boosters or just whatever spare grade 1s you have. So just keep that one in mind. But other than that, deck is still pretty strong, and let's get on with the deck. Starting off with the ride deck, we're going to go with Full Bow because I like to go with theme reasons, so Shadow Paladin, in which my grade 1 will be Blaster Javelin. I get people like to go Wingle with Marin because Marin from top 7 can in fact search for your Blaster Dark, but people don't do it for that part. People do it just to move the Wingle to the back and then kill it, because this deck does not use much soul. Very strong point about this deck as well. It does not really use soul either. In fact, you just gain more soul than you actually use the soul. Just letting you know. But what Blaster Javelin does is, when your Blaster Dark rides on top of it, you call the top card of your deck as rest. This is going to combo with the Blaster Dark. And it's going to be kind of the same reason why go Wingle with Marin. But Marin can call the Wingle from Soul, because the deck doesn't really use Soul anyway. So you don't really lose access from the top card of your deck. So I get why. But I like to go theme reasons, so I just did this. The second skill, which can be relevant because this card is Blaster, which can be in the main deck, but spoiler, I don't have it in the main deck, so it's irrelevant for me. But the second skill is that if your Vanguard's Blaster plus 2k, so 10k booster. I'll just let you know, some people will actually use this card in the main deck as well, just for that purpose, because it's Blaster, because of one specific card. But anyway, on to Blaster Dark. So when placed on Vanguard or Rearguard, you can counter last one, retire one of your other rearguards, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it, and then drive +1 into the end turn. In point, the drive +1 could also happen in rearguard. It does not get the drive checks in rearguard, but there's a specific new card to give this card drive checks. And there's also the OT as well. But of course, Cage of Sanctuary OT is not really that great, but spoiler theming reasons, I just kind of run it anyway. But anyway, just know that this is basically a grade 2 that can twin drive on your grade 2 turn. While also, this will be relevant on the rearguard skill be thanks to one card. Or the OT too, because that will just give it twin drive on rearguard as well, which is going to be very powerful. While the second skill is going to be really relevant because on rearguard during your turn, if you retired at least one rearguard, plus 5k into the end turn, which is of course going to be a 15k beater. And spoiler alert, your main grade 3s are going to be retiring rearguards anyways, so that part is going to be happening like almost every single turn. In which we go to Phantom Blaster Overlord, skipping Phantom Blaster Dragon here, because Phantom Blaster Overlord gets one additional crit when you have Phantom Blaster Dragon Soul, hence the full power Phantom Blaster Overlord if you actually pull off the full evolution, but there's actually a way to cheat that. But the second skill is the main part, where when this card attacks you can retire 2 of your rearguards, call Blaster Dark from your drop zone. And if your opponent's at least at grade 3, this unit and the Blaster Dark gets plus 10k power. So 23k beater on its own, at full power with a crit. The Blaster Dark will be 25k because you retire 2 rearguards. Persona Ride, it will be 35. That's 2 big attacks, strong point, no counterblasts. Your opponent practically cannot damage deny you on this for this one additional attack, which is the very strong point about Phantom Blaster Overlord and why I really love this. The only thing you just need to keep in mind is Blaster Dark, hence why I tell you to keep that one in mind. Because if you don't have Blaster Dark, this deck really can't function, especially for that 4th attack. It's very important that you actually commit that 4th attack because, yeah, that's what makes this deck strong. It's a free 4th attack, practically. So that's it for the Ride deck. For the main deck, first off, let's just go to the base form Phantom Blaster Dragon. I'm just going to tell you this right now, you're never going to ride this card practically because the only point of having 4 copies of this card is to really make it easy access to get your... It's just to make it so you can have it go to Soul for Phantom Blaster Overlord at full power as soon as you can. But if you do want to, on placed on Vanguard, you can call Blaster card from Soul, which is not too bad. With the second skill where you can counterblast 1, retire 3 of your rearguards, plus 10k 1 crit, and retire 2 of your opponent's rearguards. It's an okay skill, it has field control, it's not entirely too bad, but compared to Phantom Blaster Overlord with the multi-attack, I'd rather just do that. You only really use this just to full power Phantom Blaster Overlord. In which, for Persona Ride reasons, I obviously run the 3 more copies of Phantom Blaster Overlord. And that's it for the grade 3 lineup. To the grade 2 lineup, since it's very important to have your Blaster Dark as soon as you can, the 3 additional copies of Blaster Dark. And then, here's one of the key cards, Skull Witch Nemen. So first off, during your turn of your Vanguard's Blaster, it becomes 10k base, being a 5k itself. So just very important to keep that in mind because if you're playing Premium, you can technically call this with a card that says call 5k unit. So just keep that one in mind. And also maybe future support reasons, this is a 5k base power unit. But it becomes 10k base of your Vanguard's Blaster on rear. So yeah, while the main skill is that when placed on rearguard, you can counterblast 1. If your Vanguard is Shadow Paladin, you can play the skill. Put a card from your hand to Soul to draw 2 cards. Not only you get Soul, you also get to draw. But most importantly, you want to put Phantom Blaster Dragon Soul. The way to cheat it out to get your Phantom Blaster Overlord at full power. The key one, anyway. So that's why you just run 4 of this. You just want to see as soon as you can. It's drawing power too, so it just gives you pluses. Gives you Soul if you need it. But most importantly, the Phantom Blaster Dragon Soul. Next, for a promo, and still hasn't been reprint, Knight of Severity Kuhola. So this is a new promo that makes this deck absurdly good, especially to support it with the Blaster Dark. So first off, when it's retired by card ability from a blaster, it's counted as 2 units. Very key point right there, counting as 2 units. Because less minusing the better, and Phantom Blaster Overlord requires 2 retires anyway. But the second skill is the big one, because when this card is retired by the ability of the Blaster, you can choose 1 Blaster Dark on your rear guard and it gets this skill. Where, when it attacks, you can discard a card from your hand and it can perform drive checks. So how you work this card is basically Phantom Blaster Overlord attacks, you retire this card as 2 retires, you call the Blaster Dark, and then this second skill activates to make you choose the Blaster Dark to get the skill because it's going to be at all around the same time. This is going to basically give you 2 attacks with 2 different drive checks. If you play Blaster Dark's retire skill, that's going to be a double twin drive attack. It's going to be 2 attacks with 2 twin drives, which is why Blaster Dark's retire skill has become more relevant because of this card. You basically get your Vanguard twin drive plus your Blaster Dark twin drive. And because Blaster Dark itself will get a lot of power thanks to Phantom Blaster Overlord plus its own skill, it's going to be 25-35k on its own. Yeah, that's going to be quite powerful. And that's why this is the card that practically makes the deck really good. Because, yeah, you practically have another rearguard attack that acts like it's a Vanguard. Next, for another promo, which also just been reprinted, Knight of Inheritance, Emeline. So on place from hand, you can Soul Blast 1, look at top 5 cards of your deck, choose one blaster card from among them, add it to your hand, and if you add a card to your hand, you discard a card. Two important factors here. You Soul Blast 1, which could even be the Blaster Dark. The second factor is that you can search for your Blaster card. It could be Blaster Dark, that you could just discard. It could be Phantom Blaster Dragon, which is something that you want to put to Soul. It could be Phantom Blaster Overlord, which is Persona Ride. This search ability just makes this card really good. But the second skill makes it even better. When your Blaster card attacks, this card gives us 5k. You already got a Phantom Blaster Overlord attack, plus its skill to call Blaster Dark, which is another attack. That's a total plus 10k. Yes, it is also another Blaster attack, which will make it plus 15k. So this card is just really good for being a big beat stick while being your searcher. The only thing is, yes, I would say run more copies of this. And I was thinking maybe take out a Nemen for a third copy, because yeah, this card is just really good while not costing Counterblast, since Blaster Dark is now using more Counterblast. So I am thinking about taking out a Nemen. But Nemen can put the Phantom Blaster Dragon Soul, so there is a little debate here. I only run 2 because, yes, there's a lot of ways to filter out your deck too, so at the same time you don't exactly need too many copies. I might run the third one still. But it's also because spacing reasons. This deck is already running a bunch of grade 2s, as you can tell. There's 3 different grade 2s in this deck that are already for us. So yeah, this will make a total of 14 grade 2s. So this is something a little iffy about the lineup right now, is the amount of grade 2s. But being a grade 2 that can be a big beater without boosting is just very nice. But like I said, it is a bit of a problem that it does lack the boosting power in this deck. So I might actually still run more copies of this just to sacrifice boosting, because this card is just really good with the searching. And my final grade 2? Drilling Angel, because on place you can put a card from your drop zone to the Soul to look at top 3 cards for the same card name and call it. Do you know what's important about this card? Just another way to put Phantom Blaster Dragon in Soul. Because yeah, you could just discard Phantom Blaster Dragon and then just you call this card to suck it to Soul. Just another way to do it, and it's free. There's no other reason why you wouldn't run this card. It's just basically your backup way to put the Phantom Blaster Dragon Soul. I have thought about taking this out just for more copies of Emeline, but no, this card is just really good for the deck, so you should actually keep it in as a 2-off. So that's it for the grade 2 lineup. To the grade 1 lineup. First off, Armor Piercing Knight Mugain. So on place, on rearguard from hand, you can discard a card to call the top 2 cards of your deck as res, if your Vanguard is Blaster. Yes, it is as res, but at the same time, it's just one way to call more stuff, hence why I just decided to run it. It's still a grade 1 that can boost. And this also kind of goes for the same thing with Karen, where on place on rearguard, you can rest it to call the top card of your deck of your Vanguard's Blaster, but retire that card at the end of turn, which either way, you're just going to retire by card abilities anyways. So this is more so a free +1, hence why I decided to just run both of these at 2/2 each, just because. But I do like to have more options to be able to call stuff, so it is a bit of a weird lineup. But I do know there's some people who would run Blaster Javelin just to increase their Blaster lineup to search for Emeline and for boosting. Hence why I say that ability can be relevant depending on how you build your deck. But I like to have more calling options, so I just decided to do this. I might take out Karen just to put more Emeline in, because I might sacrifice the boosting for this. But at the same time, I want more ways to call stuff, so it's just a little bit of an awkward position right now. In which we finally go to the 4 PGs. And then for the trigger lineup, OT. I would say run the red one better. I'm just using this for now because I just don't have extra copies of the red one. Even the blue one might be better. Just saying. And then, of course, 8 crits, 3 draws, because you want to get your pieces, and 4 heals, 2 of them being counter heals. So that's it for this deck profile. What do you guys think about my new updated Phantom Blaster Overlord deck? Although a lot of cards have already been released, so technically I could have done it a lot sooner. But with Festival Collection, this card has been more accessible, so I just did it now. But overall, I think it's still fun and definitely a lot stronger than before. And it's all because of this card, counting as both 2 retires and giving the Blaster Dark twin drive practically. And it's still fun. I really like the aesthetic of Phantom Blaster Dragon and Overlord and Blaster Dark, so I just have to build a deck. Fan favorite of the deck since the beginning, so I just did it. And I have to say, it's just a lot of fun, especially that I like Phantom Blaster Overlord for being practically free. It's what makes it strong. And yeah, I really just can't let go of my edgy Dark Dragon. But other than that, there's really not much to say about it, other than what other cards would you probably recommend. I say I kind of like the deck as it is now. I might just switch up the ratios a bit, especially maybe run more copies of this, because yeah, this is really good. Even if you do a miss, just Soul Blasting the Blaster Dark is just going to be very helpful, and just being a big beater on its own is also very nice. So other than maybe changing the ratios a bit, I really like the deck how it is, especially with all the calling. But other than that, I just love my peanut butter dragon. And now it's time to say goodbye.